The City is Not the Landscape by Vittorio Magnago Lampugnani. The beginning of urban development that led to today's agglomeration can be dated back to the mid-19th century. Overly dense large European metropolis, with their degrading poverty-stricken districts and unacceptable standards of hygiene, led to the search for radical alternatives. One idea that became established worldwide was the Garden City by Ebenezer Howard, which he first described theoretically at the end of the 19th century and then realized in practical terms. He confronted the massive 19th century urban desert with well-arranged settlements featuring plants and trees and assumed these would become increasingly popular and eventually replace the large metropolis. The fundamental unit was a single or multi-family cottage surrounded by green. It became the favorite dwelling structure for all levels of society, gained more and more state subsidies, and as a corruption of the original Garden City idea, eventually turned into the various forms of what we today call suburbia. But this is only one of at least two instances of European urban expansion. The other involves the expansion of the city into a new, more rational structure which would maintain the compactness and density that was typical of the historical city. There are many models for this type of urban expansion. One of the most spectacular and impressive examples is the Ensanche area in Barcelona, planned by engineer Ildefonso Cerdà in 1859 and realized over the following years. It maintained the system of streets and squares that characterized the old Barcelona, but translated this into a more contemporary form and linked it with new technological achievements such as the tram and the city train system. He retained the concept of density, but only as far as it would support better hygiene standards, sufficient green and lighting. This concept resulted in a new city that boosted the same efficient use of spatial areas as the older city and immediately looked urban. This second instance is the one we need to continue upon in contemporary urban design, and it is the original definition of city that we need to re-examine, one that sees it as an artifact that protects people, human interactions, as well as the possibility to identify with a place. Hence, it sharply distinguishes itself from nature and is even in opposition to it. In light of the situation today, this historical definition has become highly modern and contemporary. The destruction of landscape by city and village sprawl, but also by proliferating single buildings, has reached an extent that is more than threatening. At the moment in Switzerland, 1 square meter of land is consumed per second by construction. In Italy, 8. The landscape that we love and cherish, but also quite pragmatically need for food production and recreation, is soon at risk of being destroyed. For this reason, we need a new old city, dense and artificial, a dispositive for human life and interaction, a city that has no place for nature. If we want to preserve our nature, we should not bring it into the city, because this is ultimately nothing more than bringing the city recklessly into the landscape. On the contrary, the city needs to withdraw into itself, become dense, hard, and stone-like again. That might seem at odds with nature, but in reality, it is the only way of paying respect to nature. This is not to say that the city has to be of stone or cement blocks. On the contrary, it has to make open spaces available, which should be designed carefully, in context, and be treated as a priority. This does not mean that nature should be completely banned from the city. But nature in the city is not real, it's a surrogate. Gardens and parks are not surviving parcels of landscape. as if they even could be biologically. They are artificial copies and metaphors of the landscape that they and the houses expelled. The New York's Central Park might pretend to resemble the original natural environment that typified Manhattan before it was constructed, but in truth it is the result of a complex reconstruction endeavor that produced a recreation machine from a piece of land, and then camouflaged it as a natural landscape. Even the trees that line our city streets have been mutated into architectural elements that look like columns and are as artificially watered as the plants on our windowsills. Should we therefore return to the city portrayed by Ambrogio Lorenzetti in the Palazzo Pubblico Siena in his fresco of Buongoverno, one that is compact and artificial, with walls sharply separating it from the surrounding countryside that provides its food and natural environment? No, because a modern city can never look like the Siena of the 14th century. Yes, because it portrays, as does the Siena of the past, an eminently artificial and, at best, artistic dispositif for people to enjoy a comfortable and even happy coexistence. In order to build a city such as this in the present day and age, we would need to rethink the discipline of urban design as much as the image of the city to which the discipline relates and from whence it comes. Landscape architecture, which has penetrated the vacuum left behind by a negligent and exhausted urban design, cannot replace it, even if camouflaged as landscape urbanism. We do not merely need to reinvent the city, but also the discipline that systematizes and collects knowledge about the city. Yet, first, we must reflect on that which has long been developed and tested, but has fallen into frivolous, reckless, yes, even irresponsible oblivion.